32 seconds. That's all it took to destroy a political dynasty, end a 7-year marriage, and send a 72-year-old matriarch to federal prison. 32 seconds on a kiss cam at a Coldplay concert caught on camera and broadcast to 40,000 screaming fans. 32 seconds that went viral with 17 million views. 32 seconds that the FBI would later call the break we needed in their investigation into one of Washington's most powerful charitable foundations. I should probably mention I wasn't supposed to be kissing Benjamin Rhodes that night. I was supposed to be the perfect political wife representing the Abbott family name with grace and dignity, while my husband handled real business in D.C. Instead, I became the woman who brought down an empire with a single kiss. But let me start at the beginning, because the kiss that was just the ending of a story that began 7 years earlier, when I was nobody special serving coffee to a man who thought he could save me. The first time I met Edward Abbott, I was serving him coffee. Not metaphorically, literally. Grande Americano extra shot at the Starbucks on K Street, where I worked between my paralegal shifts. He was 26, fresh out of Harvard Law, wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. I was 24, drowning in student loans, pretending that a Georgetown law degree meant something when you couldn't afford the bar exam. Charlotte. He said, reading my name tag with the kind of smile that suggested he collected broken things. That's a lovely name. Men like Edward Abbott don't fall in love with baristas. They fall in love with the idea of rescuing them. But God, I was tired of being broke. So when he proposed 6 months later, not romantic, strategic, I said yes, and let Edward Abbott save me from a life I was never supposed to want to escape from. 7 years later, sitting in a VIP box at FedEx Field, I finally understood the price of that salvation. Remember, darling, you're representing more than just yourself tonight. Eleanor Abbott's voice carried that particular chill that old money perfects, weighted with the assumption that everyone else was inherently lesser. She stood in my walk-in closet inspecting my outfit with the precision of a general reviewing troops. Eleanor Abbott, at 72, was still formidable. Silver hair pulled into a chignon, so severe it could have been architectural posture that spoke of decades commanding rooms full of politicians. She'd built the Abbott Foundation from her late husband's pharmaceutical fortune into a political machine that had placed governors and senators in office. The Hendricks will be there tonight. Victoria chairs the Children's Hospital Board. I trust you'll make conversation. She continued. Oh, and Benjamin Rhodes will be attending. He's representing the Meridian Group. They're considering a substantial donation. Benjamin Rhodes. I hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in this house for 4 years, not since Eleanor had banished him from their social circle. Edward's college roommate. The man who'd almost married Edward's sister before that engagement spectacularly imploded. I thought Mr. Rhodes was persona non grata. Money, my dear, has a way of rehabilitating even the most tarnished reputations. After Eleanor left, my phone buzzed, Edward canceling again. So sorry about tonight. Make my apologies to the Hendricks. You'll be brilliant as always. Love you. Love you. 2 words that had become as meaningless as the rest of our marriage. The Abbott Foundation's VIP box at FedEx Field was less about enjoying Coldplay and more about being seen enjoying Coldplay. I'd been making rounds for 40 minutes when I saw him. Benjamin Rhodes stood near the bar, somehow managing to look both at ease and slightly dangerous, in a way that expensive suits couldn't contain. Taller than I remembered, dark hair with silver at the temples, eyes that took in everything, including me. Charlotte Abbott, he said when I approached. Up close, he looked older but weathered by experience rather than wear. Mind if I join you? Ben. And I could say the same. Though I suppose you're always here, aren't you, at these things? There was something in his tone, not quite accusation, but close. Eleanor mentioned you're with the Meridian Group now. Among other things, we invest in companies that need restructuring. His smile was sharp. Companies that need to remember who they really are. Sometimes the same thing. The conversation felt loaded with subtext I couldn't parse. On stage, Chris Martin was singing about looking at the stars, and 40,000 people sang along, beautiful and artificial at the same time. Do you ever miss it, Charlotte? Miss what? Being yourself. The question hit like a physical blow. I opened my mouth to deflect, but something about the sadness and recognition in his eyes made the practiced responses die. I don't know what you mean. Don't you? Before I could respond, the stadium erupted. The kiss cam was making its rounds on the massive screens couples caught in heart-shaped frames, urged to perform affection for thousands. Most played along laughing while the crowd applauded. Then the frame appeared on us. The crowd began to cheer. Kiss, kiss, kiss. 40,000 voices rising like a wave. I felt Ben's hand find mine warm solid. My heart hammered so hard I was sure he could feel it. Charlotte, he said quietly, I should have pulled away. Should have made it clear this was a misunderstanding. Should have remembered I was Charlotte Abbott representing the family name. Instead, I found myself turning toward him. Instead, I kissed Benjamin Rhodes in front of 40,000 people, with a passion I hadn't felt in years. The crowd exploded in approval. The moment lasted 32 seconds. When it was over, everything had changed. The house was dark when I got home. I poured wine from Edward's expensive collection and tried to process what had happened. My phone buzzed with messages, 17 missed calls, 43 texts. Friends making jokes, then Eleanor. Call me immediately. We need damage control. Edward. What the hell were you thinking? I clicked a Twitter link. There it was in high definition, me kissing Ben Rhodes with intensity that made it clear this wasn't playful kiss cam response. The video had been slowed down, set to music turned into a meme. 3,000 retweets and climbing. Edward came home still wearing his DC meeting suit, hair disheveled. Charlotte. His voice was carefully controlled, which was worse than shouting. It wasn't what it looked like. I said, though we both knew that was a lie. What it looked like was my wife kissing another man with more passion than she's shown me in 3 years. The accusation hung between us, sharp and true. When had we stopped touching each other like we meant it? Do you love him? The question was so direct, so unlike Edward's usual careful diplomacy, that it caught me off guard. I opened my mouth to deny it, to give him the answer that would smooth this over. But looking at him, really looking, I realized I couldn't pretend anymore. I don't know, I said quietly. Something shifted in his expression. Not anger, relief, maybe. My mother's flying back from DC first thing in the morning. She wants to see you at 9. He left me alone with my wine and the growing realization that I had just blown up my entire life in 32 seconds of truth. Eleanor's study was a monument to calculated power. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves awards from 3 decades of political influence photographs, with Supreme Court justices and foreign ambassadors. 17 million views. Eleanor said, without preamble, not looking up from her tablet. The hashtag KissCam scandal is trending nationally. Fox News ran a segment about progressive hypocrisy in elite charity circles. She looked at me with something colder than fury, the look of a general surveying a battlefield. I've spent 40 years building this foundation's reputation. And in 32 seconds, you've managed to undo decades of careful work. Eleanor, I understand. Do you? Because what this looks like is that Edward Abbott's wife is having an affair with Benjamin Rhodes. The same Benjamin Rhodes who nearly destroyed this family once before. She touched her tablet, and suddenly the kiss was playing on the wall-mounted television. Slowed down, set to romantic music. Watching it now, I could see what everyone else saw, 2 people who knew each other, who wanted each other. This is your legacy now, Eleanor said, pausing at the moment our lips met. One kiss doesn't define a legacy, doesn't it? What do people remember about Monica Lewinsky, about any political wife who's ever become the story instead of supporting it? What do you want, Eleanor? I want you to disappear. Quietly, gracefully. Edward's already spoken to his attorney about divorce. You'll receive a settlement, and in return you'll sign an NDA and remove yourself from public life. And if I refuse, Eleanor opened a manila folder and slid a photograph across to me. Grainy but clear me leaving the Ritz-Carlton with Ben Rhodes 3 weeks ago. You've been having me followed. Of course. Did you think your coffee dates were secret? Your long lunches, Charlotte darling. I've been monitoring your activities for months. Ever since Benjamin started asking questions about foundation finances, the room spun. Coffee dates with Ben, innocent meetings to remember what it felt like to be seen as more than an accessory. He wasn't targeting me. We were just Just what Benjamin Rhodes doesn't do anything without an agenda. The man who destroyed my daughter isn't spending time with my daughter-in-law out of nostalgia. She pulled out her phone and suddenly Ben's voice filled the room. The Abbott Foundation is built on a lie, Charlotte. Everything they've told you about their charitable work, it's carefully constructed fiction. Ben, that's not fair. Fair, your mother-in-law destroyed my relationship with Sarah because I asked too many questions about where their money really comes from. The recording stopped. I sat in stunned silence. My handbag, I said numbly. You bugged my handbag. Among other things. Your car, your phone select locations. It's amazing what people will say when they think they're private. That's illegal. Prove it. Eleanor's casual confidence was terrifying. She operated in spaces between laws where power mattered more than legality. You have a choice. Sign the divorce papers and disappear quietly. Or refuse and watch me destroy not just your reputation, but Benjamin's as well. I have enough recorded conversations to bury his company, his future prospects. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you an exit strategy. You never belonged here, Charlotte. You're tired of the performance, aren't you? Tired of pretending to be someone you're not. She was right, and that was devastating. I was exhausted by the constant calculation, the way I'd slowly erased myself. The board meets Friday. I need your answer by Thursday night. Ben's office was nothing like the Abbott Foundation's marble fortress glass, and steel aggressively modern. When I told him Eleanor knew about our meetings, he wasn't surprised. I know, he said quietly, pulling a small device from his desk. I've been sweeping for surveillance equipment. Found 3 different bugs over 2 months. She said you were targeting me, using me for revenge. I am. But not the way she thinks. His honesty was like a slap. 4 years ago, I was going to marry Sarah Abbott. The closer we got to the wedding, the more questions Sarah asked about her family's business. The more I helped her find answers, the more we realized the Abbott Foundation isn't what it claims to be. He handed me a thick folder. Financial documents, emails, photographs of meetings between Eleanor and people I recognized from campaign finance scandals. It's essentially a money laundering operation for political donors who want to buy influence without transparency. The charitable work is real, but it's a fraction of what they actually do. What happened to Sarah? Eleanor gave her an ultimatum: marry me and be cut off forever, or end our engagement and keep her place in the dynasty. Sarah chose herself, but Eleanor made sure I paid for encouraging her independence. He'd lost everything in D.C. reputation funding future prospects. I rebuilt. And I waited for the right moment to take down the Abbott empire. I just never expected that moment to involve falling in love with Edward's wife. The words hung between us, heavy with promise and danger. The kiss last night wasn't planned, was it? No, but it wasn't a mistake either. I was tired of lies, tired of being someone other than myself. No, it wasn't a mistake. Then help me. Help me expose what the Abbott Foundation really is. Ben's eyes were fierce. Charlotte, you're not happy. You haven't been happy for years. What if you could be yourself again? Eleanor will destroy me. She has recordings, photographs. Let her. Because I have evidence too. Financial records, proof of how the foundation actually operates. The difference is my evidence could send people to prison. I stared at him, understanding the scope of what he proposed. Not just revenge revolution. Complete dismantling of the machine that had consumed my life. What exactly are you asking me to do? I'm asking you to choose. Between the life they've built for you and the life you could build for yourself. That night I stood in my bedroom staring at Ben's evidence folder. Financial records showing donor money redirected to PACs, emails discussing influence operations, photographs of Eleanor meeting with lobbyists in hotel rooms. The deeper I went, the more I understood why Sarah had run. My laptop was open, showing results of my own research, more financial records I'd pulled from foundation accounts, email chains painting a picture of systematic deception. I was building a case against my own family. Edward knocked softly. When he entered, he looked exhausted. Can't sleep either. He sat on the bed's edge, not looking at my closed laptop or scattered papers. Charlotte, whatever you decide about Mother's offer, I'll support it. Will you? I know how this looks. Like I'm choosing her over you. But the truth is, I don't think I've been a real husband to you in years. I married you because Mother thought you'd be good for my political future. I convinced myself it was love because that was easier than admitting I was following a script. The admission was honest in a way our conversations rarely were. You deserve to be really loved, Charlotte, not managed or displayed, and I haven't done that for you. What about your political career? The Senate-run Mother's planning. Maybe it's time I figured out what I actually want instead of following her path. He stood. The point is, if you want out really out, I won't stand in your way. Even if it means scandal hurts the foundation. Edward was quiet. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. Maybe it's time someone hurt the foundation. After he left, I opened my laptop and began typing emails. To reporters, watchdog organizations, every enemy the Abbotts had made in 40 years of maneuvering. Subject line, Abbott Foundation financial records, whistleblower evidence. But I didn't send them. Not yet. Because Eleanor had taught me one thing. Well, timing was everything. I chose the Hay Adams for my final meeting with Eleanor, because it was public elegant, exactly where wealthy women had polite conversations that destroyed lives. Eleanor was already seated when I arrived, perfectly composed in navy, that probably cost more than most people's mortgage. We made small talk until appetizers arrived. I assume you've made your decision, Eleanor said. I have. And I'm not signing your divorce papers. Eleanor's expression didn't change, but I caught the tightening around her eyes. I see, and Benjamin, there is no affair, Eleanor. There are no secret meetings, no conspiracy. There's just two people who recognize each other, and a woman who's tired of being told who she's supposed to be. How poetic. But poetry doesn't change your situation. She pulled out a recording device. Shall I play some highlights damaging conversations about foundation business that Benjamin will find difficult to explain? Go ahead. Eleanor blinked, not expecting that response. Play them. All of them. Let everyone hear exactly what kind of evidence you've been gathering through illegal surveillance. I gestured around the restaurant. I see 3 reporters, 2 federal judges, and a senator who chairs the ethics committee. They'd be fascinated by your methods. For the first time in 7 years, I saw genuine uncertainty flash across Eleanor's face. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out my phone, opened voice memo, set it between us. Why don't we find out? Eleanor stared at the phone, recalculating. This wasn't the Charlotte she'd trained. What do you want? I want you to understand the game has changed. For 7 years, you held all the cards because I didn't know we were playing. But now I do. And you think you can win? I think I don't have to. Winning isn't surviving your control, Eleanor. Winning is choosing not to play your games at all. Eleanor was quiet, processing this new dynamic. You're leaving Edward. Eventually. When and how will be my decision. You realize you're burning your entire life down. No, I'm burning down a life that was never actually mine. What I build from the ashes, that's up to me. Eleanor studied my face. The foundation supports dozens of legitimate charities. If you destroy us, you'll hurt thousands of people. The foundation will survive. It might even become what it claims to be if it's run by people who actually care about charity instead of political influence. And who would those people be? Sarah, for one. She's been running a real nonprofit in California for 4 years. Maybe it's time she came home. I stood to leave, pulling cash for my portion. Charlotte, Eleanor called. If you do this, there's no coming back. It will be war. I looked down at this woman who had controlled my life for so long, who had seemed so powerful just hours ago. Eleanor, the war started the moment you decided I was disposable. I'm just finally fighting back. The call came Friday morning while I was having coffee watching sunrise paint the gardens gold. Mrs. Abbott. This is Jennifer Walsh from the Washington Post. We've received serious allegations regarding the Abbott Foundation. Would you care to comment? I'd been expecting this since sending the evidence files 12 hours ago. I'll have to refer you to media relations, I said. Mrs. Abbott, we have documents suggesting you were present at meetings where questionable decisions were discussed. Are you aware that FBI agents served a search warrant an hour ago? My coffee cup froze. I'm sorry, what? A federal investigation has been opened. Early reports suggest possible charges related to campaign finance violations and charity fraud. Through my window, I could see black SUVs in the drive. Men in suits, badge holders visible. "They're here," I said, hanging up and immediately calling Ben. "Charlotte, I was about to call you. The evidence you provided connected to a larger investigation. We didn't just expose the Abbotts, we gave them missing pieces to bring down an entire network." "Am I going to be arrested?" "I don't know. But this was the right thing to do. You stopped something that was hurting people." The doorbell rang with the finality of a funeral toll. "I have to go. Charlotte, I love you. Whatever happens next, I love you." "I love you too," I said, meaning it more than I'd meant anything in years. The FBI interrogation room was exactly like movies, beige walls, metal table, two-way mirror. After 3 hours with my lawyer, Special Agent Martinez, was professional and thorough. "Mrs. Abbott, based on the evidence and your testimony, it appears you were largely unaware of the illegal activities. You signed documents, but your lawyers provided evidence you were misled about their purpose. I should have asked more questions. Ignorance isn't a crime when it's deliberately cultivated. Are you willing to cooperate to testify against other Foundation leadership if this goes to trial?" I thought about Eleanor, probably in a similar room with expensive lawyers. "Yes, I'll testify." "Then you're free to go. But don't leave the DC area and be prepared for significant media attention." Outside, reporters were gathering, national outlets, cable news vans, photographers. Ben was waiting across the street, leaning against his car. When he saw me, his whole face changed relief and love and pride. "How did it go?" "I'm not being charged. They want me to testify." I looked back at the federal building. "It's really over, isn't it? Your obligation to them is over. You did the right thing, Charlotte." A reporter spotted us and pointed in our direction. "I want to disappear," I said. "Just for a while. Go somewhere where no one knows who Charlotte Abbott is supposed to be." Ben smiled. "I know a place." We drove west as the sun set, leaving Washington's monuments behind for Virginia's countryside. Ben's grandfather's cabin was 2 hours outside Charlottesville, completely off the grid. "Where are we going?" I asked as farmland replaced suburbs. "My grandfather's cabin. No internet, no cell service, no way for anyone to find us unless we want to be found." "You're kidnapping me to a cabin in the woods. That's either romantic or the beginning of a horror movie." "Given this week, probably both." I laughed genuinely without calculating social impact. "Ben, what we're doing leaving together like this, it's going to look like we were having an affair. Does that bother you?" The old Charlotte would have been horrified. But sitting here driving toward an unknown future, I found I didn't care what anyone thought. "No, I think I'm done caring about what things look like to other people." "Good. Because I have a confession." He glanced at me, vulnerable. "I've been in love with you for 7 years, since your wedding day." I stood there watching Edward slip that ring on your finger, and all I could think was that he didn't deserve you. "Ben, I know it was wrong, but I couldn't forget you, Charlotte. I couldn't stop thinking about who you were before you became who they needed you to be." "What if I hadn't kissed you back at the concert?" "Then you would have stayed married and I would have exposed the Foundation's crimes without involving you. I would have protected you from the fallout even if it meant never having this chance. You would have let me go. I would have let you choose. That was the difference. Edward had chosen me like furniture. Eleanor had shaped me like clay. But Ben had loved me enough to let me decide my own fate. "I choose you," I said quietly. Ben pulled over, threw the car in park, and kissed me with 7 years of pent-up longing. No cameras, no audience, just 2 people who'd found their way back to each other. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Because once we cross this line, you'll never be Charlotte Abbott again." I thought about the woman I'd been that morning, dutiful wife, perfect accessory. She felt like a stranger now. Good, I'm ready to find out who Charlotte Rhodes might be. The cabin was rustic without being primitive, isolated without being lonely. We spent winter there hiding from media attention, while the FBI investigation played out, while Eleanor faced federal charges, while the Abbott Foundation collapsed. 3 months later, I was making coffee when Ben's phone rang. We'd finally gotten a landline, our first connection to the outside world. "Charlotte, it's for you." It was Sarah Abbott, her voice energized in a way I hadn't heard in years. Charlotte, it's Sarah. I have news. Eleanor pled guilty this morning. Conspiracy to commit fraud, campaign finance violations, tax evasion. She's looking at 2 to 4 years. I sank into a chair processing this. Eleanor Abbott, who'd controlled my life for 7 years, was going to prison. How do you feel about that? Relieved and grateful. What you did exposing all of this, you gave me back my family's honor. Sarah's voice was full of purpose. I'm coming back to D.C. The Foundation's board asked me to take over to rebuild it into what it was supposed to be. Real charity work, transparent finances, actual help. No more political games. What about Edward? Edward's stepping down from politics entirely. He wants to figure out who he is when he's not trying to be who Mother wanted. The divorce papers went through last week, by the way. You're officially free. After we hung up, I walked outside to where Ben was chopping wood in the March sunshine, his face peaceful in a way I'd never seen. Eleanor pled guilty. I told him. Ben pulled me into his arms. How do you feel? Free. For the first time in years, actually free. So what do you want to do with that freedom? I looked around at the mountains, at the man who'd loved me enough to let me choose my own path, at the future, stretching out with no predetermined script. I want to build something real, something that actually helps people. Maybe work with Sarah on rebuilding the foundation. And us. Us, I want us to build together. Because I choose you. Every day I choose you. Ben's smile was like sunrise. In that case, I have something for you. The ring was simple, elegant, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds set in white gold that caught the light. It was my grandmother's. She gave it to my grandfather when they eloped during the Depression, when they had nothing but love and the belief that was enough to build a life on. He dropped to one knee in the dirt and wood chips. Charlotte Rhodes, will you marry me? Not because it's expected, not because anyone else thinks we should, but because we choose each other, because we want to build something beautiful together. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, trapped, controlled, living someone else's life. I thought about the woman I was now, free, honest, surrounded by possibilities. Yes, I said, absolutely yes. Ben slipped his grandmother's ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly. As the sun set behind the Virginia mountains, I realized that sometimes the best way to build a legacy is to burn down the old one and start fresh. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose yourself. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, someone chooses to build that new life with you. 2 years later, the Charlotte Rhodes Foundation occupied a converted warehouse with exposed brick and large windows. No marble, no intimidation, just open workspaces where our team worked on programs that changed lives. Victoria Hendricks sat across from my desk, looking nervous, like someone who'd realized the rules had changed. I want to make a donation, a substantial one. She pulled out her checkbook with shaking hands. Guilt, mostly. I knew Eleanor was using the foundation for political purposes. We all knew. And we looked the other way. Victoria, I appreciate the gesture, but this foundation operates with complete transparency. Every dollar is public record. No political contributions, no influence buying. Your donation will just help fund literacy programs and microfinance initiatives for women. That sounds perfect. After she left, I stood at the window overlooking our courtyard, where Sarah was meeting with teenage volunteers. She'd rebuilt the old Abbott Foundation into legitimate disaster relief. Eleanor had been released from prison and moved to Vermont, where she kept bees and volunteered at a food bank. Edward had remarried a kindergarten teacher and seemed genuinely happy. Ben appeared beside me, sliding an arm around my waist. Good meeting. Unexpected. Victoria wants to donate $2 million to education. Guilt money. The best kind. I leaned into him. How was Oakland? The women we funded are mentoring new entrepreneurs. I think we should expand to 5 more cities. That'll require another $1 million in funding. Then we'll raise another $1 million. We're good at the impossible. It was true. We'd built the Charlotte Rhodes Foundation into one of the country's most respected organizations with a $15 million annual budget and programs in 12 states. But more than that, we'd built a marriage based on mutual respect and the radical idea that love should make you more yourself, not less. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah about dinner and Guatemala project news. Sarah wants dinner. She has news about Guatemala. Good news or bad news? With Sarah, usually both. Ben laughed, and the sound still sent warmth through my chest. Whatever it is, we'll handle it together. Together. Such a simple word, but it had taken me 31 years to understand what it really meant. Not performative partnership, not manipulative alliance, but actual partnership. Two people choosing each other daily, supporting each other's dreams, building something bigger than either could create alone. As afternoon light slanted through our windows, illuminating young people learning to change their communities, I realized this was what legacy really looked like. Not marble monuments or political influence, but the ripple effects of choosing courage over comfort, truth over convenience, love over fear. 3 months after Eleanor's sentencing, Ben left, not dramatically. No fight, no cruel words. Just a quiet conversation over coffee in the cabin kitchen morning light, filtering through windows that had witnessed so many promises. "I can't do this, Charlotte," he said, staring into his mug like it held answers. "I thought I could, but every time I look at you, I see what we destroyed to be together. We exposed the truth. We stopped criminals. Did we, or did I use you to get revenge on a family that hurt me?" His laugh was hollow. I told myself it was about justice, about love. But maybe I just wanted to watch them burn. He left that afternoon, driving back toward a life I wasn't part of. No forwarding address, no promises to stay in touch. Just gone like he'd never been there at all. Edward was in rehab by Christmas. The divorce papers came through his lawyer. He was too deep in his bottles to sign them himself. Sarah called occasionally with updates. He'd lost weight. Barely spoke, spent most days staring at old family photographs. The golden boy who'd never learned to fail was drowning in his first real taste of consequences. I moved back to D.C. to a small apartment near DuPont Circle, the kind of place I might have lived if I'd never met Edward Abbott, if I'd stayed the struggling paralegal serving coffee to men in expensive suits. The irony wasn't lost on me. The foundation never materialized. Who wanted to donate to the woman who'd brought down Washington's most prominent charity? My name was poison, my reputation, radioactive. Victoria Hendricks crossed the street when she saw me coming. Some evenings I sat in my cramped living room and watched the news. Eleanor appeared occasionally, congressional hearings, on campaign finance reform interviews, about prison rehabilitation. She looked smaller on screen, grayer, but her voice still carried that Arctic authority. She never mentioned my name, but the subtext was clear. I was the ungrateful daughter-in-law who'd bitten the hand that fed me. The kiss cam footage still played sometimes on late-night comedy shows during segments about political scandals or viral moments. 32 seconds that had changed everything or destroyed it depending on your perspective. I'd gotten what I thought I wanted: freedom from Eleanor's control. Escape from a loveless marriage, the truth exposed for all to see. But freedom, I learned, was a cold companion when everyone you'd cared about was gone. On quiet nights, I wondered if that barista at the Starbucks on K Street, the one who'd served Edward his Grande Americano 7 years ago, would have made different choices. If she'd known the real price of being saved, would she have stayed poor and authentic instead of rich and hollow? I still don't know. Maybe that's the point. Maybe some questions don't have answers, only consequences. Maybe some victories feel exactly like defeats, and some scandals don't set you free, they just leave you alone, with the wreckage of everything you thought you wanted. The truth was supposed to set me free. Instead, it just set me apart.